We're here today because the American people have lost confidence that government is working for them. They feel like Washington is rigged and that our political system only works for insiders and powerful corporate special interests like big oil and Wall Street.
Campaigns have existed since the late 1700s and have played a prominent role in U.S. elections. They have always been relying on money, but campaigning has evolved to the point where money influences the entire structure of campaigns. Often big corporations take advantage of candidates by using their money to influence their campaigns. Does their freedom of speech distort our freedom of speech? Campaign finance reform is a political movement to change the influence money has on campaigns. We've had campaigns since the late 18th century, and amid years of corruption and scandal from President Ulysses S. Grant's administration, Congress passed the Pendleton Civil Service Act, passed to give government jobs to citizens based on merit and not political patronage.
Okay. So I'd worked on a number of campaigns before I actually ran for office, and I'm 2 years into my 3-year term as mayor, and prior to this I was the vice mayor. I was a member of the city council, one of the 6. And you need money in order to buy the lapel stickers and the little grip cards and yard signs and etc.
Campaigns originally consisted of slogans and cartoons on paper, which advocated for the candidates. Now, a lot of our campaigns consist of commercials, attack ads, and fundraising parties. With booms in other mediums during the 20th century, TV and the internet became prominent in showcasing a candidate. Money also began to have more of an impact on campaigns and the views of candidates.
But to pay for those yard signs and to pay for the little lapel stickers, etc., you cannot run out of those things. And so whether it's a $5 contribution or a $1,000 contribution, it all makes a difference.
In 1971, the Federal Election Commission Act was passed, intended to limit the amount of money each candidate could spend on their campaign. In 1976, in the court case Buckley v. Valeo, the Supreme Court argued against the constitutionality of the act, ruling it violated the First Amendment. In 2010, a similar court case, Citizens United v. the FEC, Citizens United, a political action committee, or PAC, and a non-profit organization, won the case after it was ruled that limiting corporations' spending on federal campaigns was unconstitutional.
The Supreme Court unleashed unlimited spending in the Citizens United decision when they said that cash doesn't corrupt. But we know that that's not true. We knew it when Congress passed bipartisan limits in 2002. We knew it when Citizens United tore those limits apart, and we know it now after a string of billion-dollar elections.
Yet, many don't really understand the impact these organizations can have.
The only thing I really understand about it is the idea of hiding the money, or hiding the person behind the money. Obviously, lots of people will give lots of money to various senators or congressmen.
Oh, next to nothing about campaign finance reform. I'm aware that there's a lot of issues with campaign finance, but that's about it.
To be honest, I hardly know anything about campaign finance reform.
I know nothing about it.
So basically, when the Supreme Court, that act was passed by Congress and was reviewed in 2 Supreme Court cases. When it was first under review, the question was whether or not the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act was in violation of people's right to association or their First Amendment rights.
It's a big issue because I'm aware that congressmen and senators have people calling all the time to ask for like donations and money, and they're making a lot of like deals with companies to try to get like money so that they can run campaigns.
Bernie Sanders kind of went on his platform about how we should just take away big funding. Like at some point, if you want to give money to somebody, you have to provide a lot more than just simply the money. You need to provide your name, you need to provide reasons, you need to provide where you got the money from, how you're providing it.
As a citizen, money in government it's pervasive. It's like you're never not going to have money in government. You know, if there's money, it'll be in government, and the real question is, you know, where is that money coming from? Is it coming from a lobbying group that is acquisitioning a larger part of a voice? So is it going to drown out others? Like, that's a more pertinent question for the ethics committee.
One argument against campaign finance reform is that it violates corporations' freedom of speech, a constitutional right granted by the First Amendment.
Well, this is a core value of our country, freedom of speech. and not every society has that right. But we're very blessed in this country that this is a core value. Now, there are times when we won't agree with things that are said, and there are rules about that. So, while I honor and would defend anyone's right to their freedom of speech, by the same token, they're not allowed, in my opinion, to incite violence with that speech.
And though corporations can't spend or give money to any political party, it can give their support to candidates they believe support their cause. In addition to having other ways to express the First Amendment rights, they are also taking away from the influence of the people. The majority of the money that goes into a campaign comes from a select few donors representing these corporations. In 2010, less than 1% of all people contributing to Congress gave 68% of the money. The Washington Post reports that roughly 91% of all the time, the congressional candidate with the most financial backing wins. Because campaigns are so dependent on money, candidates are forced to conform their views to the views of these big donors. But when corporations have only their own interests in mind, they can make getting legislation for the people harder.
I think at the very least, if candidates and electeds on their own volition could just step up and say no to all contributions that would come from a developer or an entity that is doing business that might interfere with your voting.
Our current campaign structure is distorting the democracy of average American citizens, while benefiting big corporations and pushing their agendas and manipulating the system. The point of the legislative branch is to represent the people. If they're not doing their job, then they're not upholding the Constitution. Why should our rights take a back seat to corporations' money? Money isn't the backbone of democracy. We are.